Good morning. So data tells us women live longer than men. So question for the audience, and we'll get to it towards the end, is what would AI tell us? So a couple of years back, and I'll come back to the answer to that in a few minutes. A couple of years back, I was going through London, and I saw all these signs about Queen Elizabeth becoming the longest reigning monarch. And the one she beat, the previous record holder was Queen Victoria. The statistic which stood out for me was when Queen Victoria was coronated, the average life expectancy for women was about 47. So in just a few generations, that's doubled. How do we deal with the ramifications of a longer lifespan? How can technology, tools, AI help address that in a meaningful way? Clicker. So let's start off by taking a look at what are some of the lessons we can learn from other industries. And I'll just pick a couple of hot tech startups. So let's start off with Airbnb. So most of us think of Airbnb as a company which has completely disrupted hospitality. But if you take a step back and take a look at what are some of the lessons we can learn from Airbnb in the insurance industry and how we care for seniors. So let's take a step back. Airbnb effectively has done two things. It's set up a data platform. So it's now an aggregator of information across the globe for a certain vertical. Second, Airbnb has monetized excess capacity. So if you're using that example, taking a look at what Airbnb has done, how could we apply that to our industry? And let's just pick a problem like home healthcare. So today there's about 7 million people in the US who need assistance at home because of chronic care, old age, et cetera. And there's about 1 million and change home healthcare providers. So the other 6 million is actually provided by family, offspring, et cetera. But if you walk into, like if you went and saw my grandma, if you walked in and you took a look at the person who was providing care for the 10 hours during the day, that 10 hours is not all productive. There's a lot of watching soap operas, there's a lot of crossword puzzles. So let's try and apply the lesson learned from Airbnb to that paradigm. What if, and to Peter's point, some of the technology, the telemetry, the devices are there. What if you were able to equip all the people who needed care at home, provided that, use the data from that, and capturing an event, send out a home healthcare worker to provide a glucose shot or to prompt on a prescription consumption. And now what you've done is you've essentially released the excess capacity of that home healthcare worker and are now serving neighborhoods with the same original capacity you had. Let's take a look at another one. So Apple, this is a personal story. A few weeks back, I walked into an Apple store and with 2 MacBooks, fried keyboards because of liquid damage. Walked up to the Genius Bar, and so the guy kind of tinkered with it, and he goes, what happened? I'm like, well, I have this coffee drinking problem, constantly drinking coffee, and guess what happened the last time I was doing that? Boom, spill. And he's like, oh, and the second one? I'm like, that's my wife's. He's like, oh, she has a coffee drinking problem too. I'm like, well, no, her weakness is wine. I walked in yesterday after work, and she took one look at me and said, oh, I need a glass of wine. And then 30 minutes later, boom. So anyway, he tinkered with pulled up my profile, looked at it, and he said, no, these cost $600 to replace, but in your case, I'm going to make an exception. And I was curious, like, why would you do that? Like, that's $1,200 giveaway. And his response was, one of the things we look at is your relevance to us, your lifetime value. And I buy a lot of Mac stuff for events, giveaways, et cetera. So based on that, it makes economic sense for us to do this for you. Imagine the power of knowing your consumer at every interaction. This is from an Apple perspective. Imagine that same power in knowing your member at every interaction. And if you go to the next level, and Peter alluded to a number of these points as well, imagine the power of knowing your members, not just at every interaction, but just knowing them when an event can be predicted to happen. That transforms care. So if I now translate that back to how is all of this relevant to Humana? And frankly, I'm super excited to be here today. I think about what you guys are doing. You're the leadership team of an industry leader in an industry which is being transformed. And the disruption you guys are going to see in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years is just going to be remarkable. But when I think about what are the two fundamental things you guys have as a priority, so one is how do we improve care for seniors or others? And the second is how do we reduce the cost of care? How do we provide better care at a lower cost point? So how can AI help there? Let's attack a couple of problems. And by the way, in Q&A, if you guys have any unique issues you're trying to address, be provocative, throw a question out, and David and I will try and respond to that. So and I'll pick on one of Peter's example about nurse, video chat, chatbots, et cetera. So step one is you want to do more remote care. So you're reducing unnecessary visits to a provider setting with the higher cost. So step one is just having a chat line. Step two is having a video. But if you really want to leverage technology, imagine this scenario. Senior calls in. It's a live video stream interaction, like a video conference. The ML is running against that in real time. From the image analysis of each of the frames inside that video, it's able to predict what's going on. From one extreme, like, hey, this rash on your skin, no biggie, here's what it is, apply that ointment, already have the prescription, to the other extreme, oh, you might be about to have a stroke. I'm going to call 911 for you right now and have an ambulance sent over. So the opportunity there to take something that you guys are already doing, next level it, because that's where the industry is going. Let's pick another example. You guys have a contact center, right? 1,000-odd agents. I want to make sure I'm not falling off the stage. So typically, when we think about contact center, I mean, you guys probably do a lot of training and enablement around sensitivity. I think even put like cotton balls in agents' ears so they can empathize with someone who's calling in. But let me frame the contact center from one where you answer questions. And let me make a couple assumptions. So let's say you get 100,000 calls a day with a whole series of questions that you tend to answer fairly easily. But let's say when the call comes in real time, you're able to reach out, pull in the member data. In real time, you're able to reach out and pull in their claims and prescription data. In real time, you then map that to say, and I'll use myself as an example. Subir calls in, and the agent goes, Subir, you haven't had a physical in 3 years. What are you thinking? You have a wife, you have kids? Here, let me take care of scheduling one for you right now. Or you haven't refilled your prescription in the last 3 months. You need this for your chronic care management. Say the word, I press the button because we have all your credit card information, we know your address, we know your prescriptions, and we can send that out. And of the 100,000 such calls, let's say 10%, so 10,000 actually act on that. Of the 10,000 who act on it, let's say 10%, 1,000 are able to catch an event a day, a week, 3 months prior to it happening. That has an impact on reducing the cost of care while improving care. Because what you just did was, instead of waiting, I mean, one of the challenges in healthcare is we really break it into a couple of areas, from the lifestyle, exercise, avoid the bread pudding. I won't avoid the bread pudding. To diagnosis, to treatment. But there is a massive band in between that, which is detection. And detection is now facilitated by technology. And AI allows us to tap into that data set and translate that into something which helps us improve care, catch things faster. Anytime you catch something faster, the cost, impact of dealing with that condition, the treatment cost reduces drastically. Now, and David's going to go into this in more detail, but the challenge now is how do we use AI today? And I'll close by just sharing something there was mandatory reading in college, a book, Think Fast and Slow. So the way the brain works is there's the think fast part, and there's the think slow, analyze, understand. Think fast, like when I'm walking across the stage, I'm not really thinking of giving instructions to my foot to move. It's happening instinctively. Think slow is if the alarm goes off, I'll turn, react, address, adjust. So what do you need to do from a Humana perspective is recognize those two prongs. The first path, the think fast prong, is really setting up your data platform, making the information you have inside your company available, the information you're able to pull in from genomics data banks or social media properties is there, because that allows different group silos, the contact center to find the claims data and the member data and act on it. And the think slow part is have a focus on purpose-built solutions. Because there's a lot of cliches in the AI world. Have a focus on purpose-built solutions, which is have a problem, how can we leverage technology, how can we zoom out, look at what we have across Humana from a data set perspective, and then zoom back in to address that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David.